And we know how important chemistry is, especially on a national team and especially in an international competition. And that's not worth the risk.
I personally don't think that they should be allowed to join the team.
I think AFCON, they have to win it.
Oof.
I think they're hosts.
100%.
They're hosts, they have to win it. There's no excuse. Welcome to another episode of 5ASIDE on beIN Sports. Today, it's a lot of talk about African football, Ghana, Morocco, Egyptian club football, and of course, cultural news with Air Afrique. We're going to get into all of this right now. But the first thing we have to talk about, and Josh, this pertains to you and the Ghanaians all over the world, rumors are not confirmed, but the players whose names are floating around are, of course, Eddie Nketiah and Callum Hudson-Odoi, two English-born players of Ghanaian descent. The question to you is, how do you feel about the Ghanaian national team bringing in players after you guys have qualified for the World Cup who didn't take part in the qualification process?
No, that's a good question. I mean, personally, it reminds me of the quote, no contribution, no chop. You know what I mean?
Say that again.
Hey, no contribution, no chop, Charlie. Bro, it's one of those things, like, if you're not there during, the struggle of getting to a major tournament, just stepping into the major tournament, it shines an interesting light. But it's about choosing, the team that you want, choosing the national team specifically that you want from the start. It's understandable for someone to be split decision.
Of course.
It's understandable for it to be hard. At the end of the day, obviously the coach has also brought up the fact that, listen, we want to honor the people who stuck with and went through. So it's interesting. We'd love to hear what y'all have to think as well too.
I would say I think there's a way to bring them in without letting them be at the forefront, because you weren't part of the qualifying round. You weren't part of building up this squad, but you could be a useful asset, and you don't want to kind of shoot yourself in the foot with the fact that you can bring in some incredible players to the squad. But I definitely think if you were to put them as instant starters, that would super hurt team chemistry. And we know how important chemistry is, especially on a national team and especially in an international competition, and that's not worth the risk.
I personally don't think that they should be allowed to join the team. One of Ghana's strongest teams ever, the team that went to the 2010 World Cup, was majority homegrown players. They won the U20s World Cup in 2009, the year before, with 100% players who came up in Ghana. And so that country specifically has a history of succeeding when they rely on players who came up in local academy systems. We see obviously South Africa right now, they just qualified for the World Cup first in their group. They fielded some of the games that they played in qualifiers were 100% homegrown players. So we're seeing this pattern more and more that could be a recipe for success. And I think Ghana should follow suit.
I mean, how I feel is the complete opposite. I think, and I'll use the example of just a workplace environment. If you're a company that succeeds in one thing, you go on to another thing that's a bit more difficult because you succeeded in your first step. Why would you not go and bring better talent to achieve the second goal? At the end of the day, Ghana's players got paid to be part of the qualification process. So it's not like there's this sentimental issue of, oh, we struggled and we did this and we did that. You were compensated for your effort. Now it's a new challenge and a new thing. Bring in the best talent you can possibly do. That's how I feel. And personally, if it was Cameroon or if it was Italy, how I would feel is that I would want the best players to be part of that process. I would want the best players on the field going to the World Cup. And so if we have a chance to acquire new talent, you should. That's my opinion.
Would you integrate them directly in terms of the fact of, okay, if you could be the starting 11, would you directly put them there? Would you take them off the bench?
I think you start off the bench and you let them have to prove themselves in the last 35, 40 minutes, because at the end of the day, national team is much more about chemistry than club football.
Exactly.
But I think it's kind of silly to not bring the talent, because what if someone gets injured and then you say to yourself, man, I could have brought Nketiah to this tournament and I didn't because of pride? You should. You got to bring them. If you have the opportunity, you have to.
The conversation that we just had, about the Ghanaian national team brings up the fact that, some cases it does work when you tap into the diaspora resources that you have. Morocco was able to make a deep run in last World Cup.
And speaking of Morocco, we have to talk about what Morocco just did in the U20 World Cup. Champions of the world in the under-20 division, beating Argentina 2-0 in the final. Guys, Morocco has probably cemented itself as a footballing nation. That's probably my take right now. I think that Morocco can consider itself a top 8, top 9 nation when it comes to the abilities that they have as a global resume for football, not just on the men's side, but on the women's side as well. There's precedent in the past for African nations having done very well in youth tournaments. Nigeria beating Argentina in a final, Ghana, going all the way in 2009. But it has never really translated into semifinal or final success for African nations at the major World Cup for men. So we're looking at a Morocco team that did very well in the last World Cup, is about to host AFCON. What can they do going into the World Cup?
This Morocco team heading into the 2026 World Cup is going to have some of the highest expectations we've ever had for an African team at a World Cup. So you mentioned fresh off the 2022 semifinals, they're going to be fresh off hosting AFCON, where a lot of us think they'll probably make at least a semifinal appearance. You have the likes of Achraf Hakimi, who is a Ballon d'Or candidate, and he might become one once again. Now you have the U20 World Cup winners, on top of all the financial investment in that country, again, on both the men and women's side. You can feel that this isn't just a moment, but it's actually a movement in Morocco. So I think they're going to do really well. I think bare minimum, I'll give them quarterfinals at the 2026 World Cups. But it's great to see the building from the foundation that they're doing. And then now going into these major tournaments, they feel like one of the big dogs because they are one of the big dogs. And that's how I see them for 2026.
Yeah, I think for me, really, like, I personally think Morocco can win the World Cup next year.
Bang.
I think
Really?
Bang.
I think if they bring in like 4 to 5 young players from this U20 team, like they can have like almost like the perfect squad. I think they relied on the last World Cup, a lot of the experience that they had. If you look at like the likes of Amrabat, Ziyech, Bonu, Hakimi, a lot of these players are in their like mid 20s to early 30s. And that experience carried them all the way to the semifinal. But we see that like there was a lot of moments where they just had fatigue. Like they didn't have those like that young spark coming off the bench, bringing in a lot of energy. If you bring in like 4 or 5 of these guys who have shown that they could win an international tournament, they might have the perfect recipe.
Yeah.
Speaking of youth players that really did well for Morocco in this tournament, you have a deadly duo for the Moroccans, Othman Mama and Yassir Zubiri. Mama is a little bit of a CR7 regen, wears the number 7, moves like Ronaldo. You can tell he watched a lot of highlights of El Bicho growing up. Zubiri as well scored 2 goals in the final, but Mama, being a player who played in Ligue for Montpellier, you can see his highlights, what he did in Ligue is just a testament to how far he can go, and he's a player who is on the same list as folks like Messi, Aguero, and Pogba, because having won the Golden Ball at the U20 tournament puts him among those names. And so this kind of brings me to my next question. Kendrick, you kind of already answered it, but what is success or what is failure for Morocco in their next 2 international tournaments? AFCON and World Cup. And I can start. I think AFCON, they have to win it.
Oof.
I think they're hosts.
100%.
They're hosts, they have to win it. There's no excuse. And World Cup, I think going into a World Cup, I'm not as ambitious as you, Kendrick, but I think at least a semifinal.
Today's date is October 23rd, 2025. I'm saying it now. Morocco, the Atlas Lions, they're the Giant Slayer. They're going to go on to win AFCON, and they're going to go on to win the World Cup.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
All right. Well,
Bold predictions.
yeah, super. But it brings me to my next topic pretty easily. Speaking of North African teams dominating, we'll bring it over to club football right now. A team in Egypt that is kind of new on the block, because in Egypt you have the old heads. You have Al Ahly, you have Zamalek, who a lot of old Egyptians will know and be fans of. But there's a new team now that just recently got acquired in 2018, Pyramids FC, who just won the African Super Cup against RSB Berkane, which puts them in a position to play PSG in Qatar in December. Of course, they have to get through a semifinal first, but this is a team that's really starting to make waves. They're already qualified for the Club World Cup in the next 4 years. Guys, what do you guys think about this new giant in North African soccer, in African soccer, as a club team?
No, I think it's an incredible story because the club itself was only founded in 2008. They were then acquired in 2018 and being rebranded as Pyramids FC, and only made their first ever African Continental Cup appearance in the 2019-2020 season. But to be able to come as far as they have already, they also won the African Champions League, winning 3-2 in the final against Mamelodi Sundowns, another Club World Cup team. So just to be such a young team and already have ascended this high in Egyptian football, and especially accelerating after the acquisition, it's incredible to see just how fast, when you put that investment in, which you can really create with a team.
And speaking of homegrown ballers, one of the greatest ever from Africa, Didier Drogba, has appeared in a Nike campaign with Air Afrique. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. It's a story of how African football and culture has kind of come together. Guys, I kind of want to hear your thoughts on this Air Afrique campaign and what it means for the culture of African soccer in general.
It's really cool to see, honestly. It's something that started in Abidjan. You know, recently they actually had a pop-up in New York, which was real cool. And the next stop is London. You know, they're able to go to Paris, stop in New York, and so it's a way to bring the diaspora together and show, obviously, that, you know, this mode of transportation, being the plane itself, is something that's able to carry that culture globally.
For me, it's just a testament to his longevity. Like, there are still little kids who never watched Drogba play a game in their life, but they know what he means. They know the significance of him. They know what he looks like. And to have that sort of like lasting legacy years after finish playing the game, it's an incredible testament to all he's done.
Speaking of great players, lastly, there's a debate that needs to happen right now about what players are coming into their Ballon d'Or candidacy. We have Dembélé, who of course won it last year, but there's new players on the block like Harry Kane, Salah, maybe going for another shout, Lamine Yamal. Who do we think is an early contender for the Ballon d'Or, and who could be the next player to sit at that table for the Ballon d'Or?
I think Dembele's most likely person to dethrone him is actually his French teammate, Kylian Mbappé. The form that he's currently in with Real Madrid, the fact that he scored in 11 straight games for club and country, and the likelihood to also have a team success to go with his individual brilliance and statistics, I think he's the most likely person to get it. I think he's going to have the crazy 50, 60 goal season. Real Madrid's probably going to win La Liga, maybe Champions League. We think France will probably have a deep run in the World Cup. So I'd go with Mbappe, but Kane and Haaland also have a great opportunity as well.
I think because Hakimi has a really, really good chance of doing well with Morocco and has 2 major international tournaments this year, he's pretty high on the list of players who could make a good Ballon d'Or run.
I predict that Morocco can go on to win the World Cup. I think PSG can go on to win a treble again if they get healthy. And so I think the more that he does to just lay claim to that prize, the more likely it is that he'll walk away and become another African Ballon d'Or winner on that very short, exclusive list.
Let us know what you guys think. This has been another episode of 5ASIDE on beIN Sports. Tune in next week, same time.